Whatever happened to Ecchi?
uh,
But really, whatever happened to Ecchi? For real.
I don't know. I feel like since we talked about Lavina, I think Lavina and a lot of those 2000 etchy manga that I really loved. It was I think the genre that I read the most when I started reading manga was etchy arms. I feel like they weren't as sexualized, if that makes sense. They were etchy. We'd see the girls naked. There was so much more to it, where we get a lot of these series recently where it's more about watching the girls get naked, and that is essentially it. And see them fall in love with the guy. And one of the things that I also really like about Lavina that I think a lot of these manga recently don't do is having a character who's actually in love with just another one. Because in Lavina, the main character like Narsegawa, and sure, the other girls would eventually start liking him, but it was just a core story of a core story of this guy liking this girl, and that made that manga so much more enjoyable to me, especially at the time. And there's other stories that did differently. I think, for example, Ichigo 1% did was all about him liking three different girls, but it also did it in a different way that I see things like We Never Learn, or even if it's not etchy, the quintuplets do, where in those cases it's so much about which girl is going to end up with that we can't evolve the romance too much in either sides. So just we need to keep all of them together. We can't tell which of the girls this guy like, and then at the end, boom, it's this one. Just kind of like a guessing game. Whereas with Ichigo 1%, we've got to explore the relationships with these characters a lot more. And at the end, it actually tackles the fact what happens when the guy likes multiple girls at the same time, which is something that I don't see other etchy or other arm mangas do a lot. Because a guy liking three, four girls at the same time is going to lead to a lot of problems.
You don't
uh,
say.
yeah. So yeah, I feel like we are kind of missing on that. And yeah, again, I think I mentioned We Never Learn and Quintuplets, but I think those two are definitely the best ones I've seen recently. Because again, those at least don't focus too much on just being just showing naked skin. And while I enjoy etchy, I think the manga shouldn't be just about that.
Do you think Ecchi is going in the direction that it currently is because of other genres that have been taking over in popularity? If you look at isekai, for example, a lot of
Yeah.
isekais today, at least in my opinion, many others as well, they would say that isekai is essentially harems that are reskinned and thrown into a different world because that's what's popular. And the main character has suffered because of it. Now all of the main characters look the same. I'm sorry, but they do. All of the girls have four or five different tropes that they're now manifested into characters, and then every chapter, every episode is basically how can I fall into her chest, how can I make her angry that I'm talking to the other girl. There's no more story. And even when people try to justify and say,
Hey,
hey,
this
this
Ecchi
Ecchi
series
series
has a
has a
lot
lot
of
of
heart
heart
to
to
it.
it, I can't help but feel that not really, not compared to what we got even 10 years ago. As much as I can appreciate Ecchi, it's not something that I'm really looking forward to all the time in my series, and especially when a lot of the authors today are just using it as a vehicle to get their reader to the next chapter and see what else the character does. It doesn't seem like there's any more story building. It doesn't seem like they really care about developing a relationship. What's the end goal for the main character? Do I care about the main character? Are these girls more than just attractive looking females? I don't know. I just feel like Ecchi has lost a lot of its charm.
No, I actually never read too much isekai because I think that's kind of a thing that's more frequent in anime, and I'm not really watching anime very frequently. So I kind of skipped. I know a lot of friends and know a lot of people that do complain about isekai, and I've seen a lot of images and things that I can't distinguish most of them. But yeah, I can understand what you mean with that. And just to throw a little bit of an example again with Lavina and with I'm gonna get killed for not remembering her name, but the girl from Neon Genesis Evangelion, the red one,
Oh my
uh,
gosh, Asuka,
Asuka. Yeah.
best girl.
So yeah. So those two are probably some of the earliest examples of a tsundere character. The thing is, back then when those two characters were written, this wasn't really a trope, and this was just kind of like one of the character traits of these characters. And eventually, I think nowadays we just look at that part of those characters, like the tsundere, and we have to have the tsundere in our harem, and we have to have the the innocent girl and the childhood friend, and it's just tropes. And I feel like that's definitely one of the biggest problems, not just in harem, in our manga. I think in pretty much any manga or anime that has a big female cast that focus a lot on the female cast, they end up having at least one or two or three of these characters as just the character tropes.